I agree. I used to teach college courses in philosophy, and there's different branches of philosophy, aesthetics and ontology and epistemology and ethics. Ethics is one of the main ones, and there's all these complicated systems of morals and ethics, and yet in many ways it really is quite simple. It boils down to the golden rule, and I think that's something that resonates at the very core of our being, not to do to others what we wouldn't want to have done to ourselves. Yes. Well, I think one of the main ways is examples of other people. That was what helped me so much. I was kind of lost. I was born into I was Concord, Massachusetts, which was kind of neat. I mean, there was way back in the 1800s, they had the first vegan community ever in North America. It was called Fruitlands. Thoreau and Alcott and a few other people got together, and they had a community where they tried to live in a more kind and compassionate and caring way. But for the most part, it folded after a few years, and people were eating a lot of meat, dairy, and eggs when I was a little kid. So I did. I mean, as children, we just speak the language of our culture and we eat the food of our culture. It's very difficult not to. You have to.
Welcome to the Better Life for Animals podcast, where we amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. Through powerful stories and expert insights, we shine a light on the efforts to rescue, protect, and advocate for animals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Every follower helps us reach more people. And support animal sanctuaries. Enjoy the conversation.
Welcome to Better Life for Animals. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Will Tuttle, a visionary author, educator, and advocate for compassion and nonviolence. Dr. Tuttle is best known for his groundbreaking work, The World Peace Diet, which has been published in over 17 languages and is considered one of the most important books on veganism and cultural transformation. His latest book, Food for Freedom, delves into the interconnectedness of health freedom and animal liberation. A former Zen monk with a PhD in education from UC Berkeley, Dr. Tuttle's work uniquely blends spirituality, intuition, and social justice. He has dedicated his life to inspiring a cultural revolution rooted in kindness and respect for all beings. Alongside his wife, a visionary artist, Madeline Tuttle, he travels the world delivering lectures, workshops, and concerts of uplifting piano music. Join us as we explore how Dr. Tuttle's insights can help us create a more compassionate world for animals and ourselves. Dr. Tuttle, welcome to the podcast. I have to say that, you're welcome. Your books they go so deep in laying it all out. And I just found myself wanting to pause many times and just take in the paragraph. They're so well written. And then I wanted to just sort of commute with the trees. I know you love to talk with and be in nature, and I can totally understand in the book how you describe that feeling. So thank you for that. One of the things that I saw again and again in all of your books is your work on the golden rule. How can something so simple be so difficult to apply universally?
Right. Well, thank you. That's a great question, Cheryl. And I agree. I used to teach college courses in philosophy, and there's different branches of philosophy, aesthetics and ontology and epistemology and ethics. Ethics is one of the main ones, and there's all these complicated systems of morals and ethics, and yet in many ways it really is quite simple. It boils down to the golden rule, and I think that's something that resonates at the very core of our being, not to do to others what we wouldn't want to have done to ourselves, and conversely, just as best we can, if we want to be loved, then to be loving, and if we want to be prosperous, then to be generous. The whole idea is to give. Whatever we put out comes back to us. It kind of goes together with that other main teaching in all the world religions of whatever we sow, we eventually will reap. And I think it's, to answer your question, the reason it's so difficult in our culture to be able to build a society that reflects this wisdom teaching, which we all know is really foundational, is our routine mistreatment of animals for food and other uses. And because it's been so normalized and it's become so widespread and vast, I mean, we're talking millions of animals every day, probably literally billions of animals every day when we talk about fish, including marine animals. So this is a huge problem because we're abusing sentient beings and beings that we know, especially those of us, and most of us nowadays do have either a companion animal like a dog or a cat, or know people that do. So we know animals are sentient. And yet, on the other hand, we're taking out our wallets every day and paying people to commit horrific atrocities, actually, on these animals. And we know that. People know that the hamburgers and hot dogs and cheese and so forth that we're just sort of nonchalantly eating relentlessly, that causes tremendous suffering. And we not only pay for that, but then we're eating it. So it causes tremendous amount of repression of our natural empathy and kindness and our ability to make these connections. And that just pervades that's the template, really. It pervades all of our relations. And so we have these underlying mentalities in our society that go against what we truly, in our wisdom, which we have wisdom as human beings, would like to espouse and build together. So we're eating violence, we're causing violence, but we would love to have nonviolence. We're eating and causing injustice, but we would love to have justice. We're eating and causing the domination of the sacred feminine dimension of life, which yearns to love and nurture and protect life, but we would love to support that. So this is the dilemma. And like Carl Jung pointed out, he calls it the shadow. It's what we are, but we don't want to see. And the bigger it is, the harder it is to see. That's the great irony. So I really appreciate your efforts, Cheryl, to help people understand these issues so that we can move to the next level, really.
Thank you. I love how you break out the history of how we got to where we are today. And I think you call it hurting. And I think it'd be worth our time to spend a little bit to go just quickly over how we got here in the first place.
Right. Well, that's a very important question. And when we look back into our history, one of the main things that people use to justify and rationalize eating animal foods is the idea that, well, we've always done this. This is sort of part of what brought us where we are. And actually, it's relatively new. It's only 10,000 years ago, which is, not very long ago. And 10,000 years ago, for the very first time, we started owning animals as property for food. We call that herding. And we don't realize it, I don't think, today, that we're living right now in a herding culture. It's just that it's invisibilized. We don't see it. It's computerized and industrialized, and it's done far away in these sheds where we don't really see it. But basically, we're herding millions of animals. They're confined and they're sexually abused, really. They're impregnated against their will and then they're killed and so forth. So we started doing that 10,000 years ago for the very first time in what is today the northern part of Iraq. Apparently, everyone pretty much agrees that this is the first time it's happened. And I feel that was the last revolution in our culture because it changed everything. But again, we don't really talk about it as a revolution, but it basically changed our relationship with animals, with nature, and really with each other. And it initiated about 5 or 6 main movements. One was animals, instead of being respected as mysterious and powerful cohabitants of the earth with us, they became property. First it was wild sheep, then wild goats, and then about 2,000 years later, wild cows, and then other animals. And so once we own animals as property, their status drops. And then the other animals, their status also dropped because they are now seen as potential pests that might interfere with our property. So this whole relationship, instead of being in a sacred relationship with this earth and the other beings here, now we're in a position of domination and exploitation and extreme abuse, including sexual abuse of these other beings. So This was a slow revolution. It took many, many generations. I would think, hundreds of generations really to build momentum. But that's what happened. So animals were reduced. That led for the very first time on planet Earth to the arising of a wealthy plutocratic class, this wealthy sort of elite class. They're called the kings. And I used to teach college courses in the oldest cultures, the oldest books, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the ancient Old Testament writings. These books go back about 4,000, 4,500 years ago. By that time, the herding culture was well established. And in every book, you always have kings that dominate everybody. And why are they powerful? It's because they own capital. Capita is the old Latin word that means head, as in head of sheep and goats and cows. Those who owned capital were wealth. Animals were wealth. They were the foundation of wealth. And then they invented two institutions that are still with us today, stronger than ever in many ways. One is war. The oldest word for war is the old Sanskrit word gavya, which means the desire for more cows, because that was basically how
Incredible.
the wealthy got wealthier, was to go and get some more capital, and they'd have to go to fight against another wealthy king to get it, this extra wealth. And so, as always, war has been a tool that is used by the rich to get more wealth. And it's still the same today. And then the other institution that followed right behind that and with that is slavery, or we call it today trafficking, but basically owning other beings as objects and using them, not only animals, but human beings. So whoever lost the war, the animals became the property of the victor, and the human beings that lost the war became the property. And so then they became impregnated against their will, and they started buying and selling human beings. So all of this came about as a result of animal agriculture, this war against animals, and the need for more land and more water if we have more animals. When I used to teach the Republic by Plato, which goes back about 2,500 years, Socrates says very clearly, if we want to eat meat, we'll have to go to war, right? They understood that 2,500 years ago. We're still not aware of it, it seems like. And Pythagoras said the same thing 2,500 years ago. The Pythagorean theorem that we learn in school is mathematical, but he said, as long as men kill animals for food, there will be war. So this has been understood. And the other thing that this led to was the domination of women, because the whole idea in animal agriculture, it's based on seeing the female basically as merely a breeder. So it's reducing the status, not just of animals, but especially of females. And gradually men began to see women merely as breeders. And then the first science, this is an important point really, first science was really human beings systematically developing the ability to dominate and exploit animals and to breed them in ways that would give them more profitability, more milk, more wool, more flesh on their bones, to be more docile. And so this whole systematic domination of nature to predict and control nature, which is basically science, it's used today to create a technology to dominate nature, that all emerged. And then also boys were harmed. I mean, females were harmed, obviously, but also males, because boys had to learn to, unfortunately, to just suppress the natural gentleness and tenderness and kindness and become hard and tough. And so hard, tough males dominating and competing has been and still is a devastating force on planet Earth, and using the intellect in order to create weapons of destruction. And so these cultures in the Eastern Mediterranean that emerged were very patriarchal and warlike, and they started to dominate and destroy other cultures and spread to the Northern Mediterranean, to Central Asia and to Europe. And then from Europe, of course, through the colonial period, continued to spread throughout the whole planet. And so we see this now still spreading in many ways. I mean, spreading, when Madeline and I, as you mentioned, the World Peace Diet being translated into, it's about, I guess, 20 languages now. We go to all these countries in Europe or Asia or Africa or the Middle East or South America, and we can see very clearly everywhere through ConAgra and Cargill and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Burger King and McDonald's and the IMF and the World Bank and the World Economic Forum and all these globalist corporations and financial institutions, governmental agencies it's spreading the same thing, this mentality of the domination and exploitation of nature and animals. And really, that's what we're born into. And so it's hard for us to see it because we're born into it. It's like when you have free living animals, it's very hard to confine them. They're always trying to bang against the cages. They don't like it. And when you have animals that are born into captivity, they're much more docile because that's all they know. And so I think, unfortunately, we're born into a culture of exploitation, not only of animals, but of each other. And we're eating animal foods, and we just think it's okay for some people to have far more wealth and power than others. And we're born into that. So I think really what we're talking about is just seeing this clearly and realizing that when we begin to heal the wounds within ourselves and stop paying other people to dominate and exploit animals, we begin to be part of a very benevolent transformation of our culture back toward the golden rule again, back toward not doing to others what we would not want to have done to ourselves, and creating a real foundation for peace and sustainability and freedom and so forth.
You're listening to Better Life for Animals podcast. Our mission is to amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. First of all, go ahead and subscribe to this channel wherever you're watching or listening. And then get involved by visiting betterlifeforanimals.com. That's betterlifeforanimals.com. Be sure to check out our blog, learn more about incredible sanctuaries, and explore our book section, where 100% of net proceeds from book sales are donated to sanctuaries. Every action you take helps to make a difference. And remember, subscribe to this channel. And now, back to the show.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking to Dr. Will Tuttle on Better Life for Animals. Thank you, because I think that's such an important concept that so many of us don't have. You just lay it out so simply. It's like, this is how this all happened. It seems so complicated, like it has to be because it's always been. But what I got is that no, it doesn't have to be. And this is how it started. It was very simple. You know, when you think of war, it's we need more cattle. I love that in a macabre sort of way. One of the things I noticed in my working with animals is I've spent a lot of time with veterinarians who I would have thought would have been, all vegan. Of course they would be, right? But I find that they're not, which was very surprising to me. And then I saw that section in your book where you talk about the college where children or young people learn about animal husbandry, but in fact, they were learning about slaughter in this particular episode that you were laying out in your book. And it's like we are normalizing brutality. We are teaching our young from the very beginning that this type of brutality is normal. And in order to unhook from cultural indoctrination, I think we have to see it for what it is so that we can separate ourselves. And anyway, I think that we have to look for other alternatives and to be able to point out this is what's really going on. How can individuals reclaim, their inner wisdom, which as you said, we all have, to resist these pressures telling us that that's normal?
Yes. Well, I think one of the main ways is examples of other people. That was what helped me so much. I was kind of lost. I was born into I was Concord, Massachusetts, which was kind of neat. I mean, there was way back in the 1800s, they had the first vegan community ever in North America. It was called Fruitlands. Thoreau and Alcott and a few other people got together, and they had a community where they tried to live in a more kind and compassionate and caring way. But for the most part, it folded after a few years, and people were eating a lot of meat and dairy and eggs when I was a little kid. So I did. I mean, as children, we just speak the language of our culture and we eat the food of our culture. It's very difficult not to. You have to. And all the attitudes that go with it. So for me, it was seeing a community of people. Like it was the farm in Tennessee, which was a large hippie commune that my brother and I ended up walking to from New England all the way down to Tennessee. 900 people, and they were all vegetarians. They were actually vegans, but no one knew the word back in 1975, vegan. So they said, we're vegetarians. There was no meat, dairy, eggs, or honey. And so for me, it was the example of seeing people doing that and thriving. And that I've never eaten meat in my life since that time. And then a few years later, I was a Zen monk in Korea, and I was in a community that had been practicing veganism for 750 years as a spiritual practice. And so that made it much more solid for me. So I've been a vegan now for 45 years. And so I think for me, it was the experience of seeing other people who had made the connection and were living that way. And I think the people at the farm and the people at the Songwangsa Zen Monastery were also following examples that they had seen. So it goes back, really, this wisdom goes back hundreds of years, thousands of years. People have understood this. The Buddha, historically, and I think a lot of the great sages and saints, the founders of religions, understood this. And if you look into the history of the Christian church, you'll find going back to the Ebionites, the original early Christians, it was well known that they did not eat meat. They wouldn't do it. So there has been this understanding, but it's been suppressed, especially strongly in our culture, because if you want to exploit people, the best way is to have them exploit animals. Then they're much easier to exploit. So I think the whole idea is to somehow do what you're doing, what we're doing right now, is to just share these ideas, to be an example ourselves. Here I am, a vegan for 45 years. And I'm thriving. I'm doing great. It gets better every year. And there's not just me. There's like literally millions of people like me who are showing that we can thrive and be happy and successful and creative and have beautiful relationships and a meaningful life without harming any animals. In fact, it's much easier to be a lot more healthier and happier if we're not eating misery and causing violence and despair and all these things. We're not contributing to that. So it's mainly a matter, I think, of exemplifying and then trying ourselves to live the teachings of veganism, which are very simple. It's basically one word: love. That's it. It's just to be as loving as we can in our interactions that we have with other living beings, other human beings, and other sentient beings like animals and ecosystems and future generations and hungry people and slaughterhouse workers. I mean, we're always interconnecting with countless living beings, directly and indirectly, through our thoughts, words, and actions, and our purchases and everything we're doing. So the most beneficial thing, I think, is for each one of us as an individual to bring our own life into alignment with this understanding that there's one life that lives through all of us. We're not fundamentally separate. As soon as we bless others, we're blessed. As soon as we're kind to others, we're happier. As soon as we try to manipulate or exploit somebody else, we're going to get manipulated and exploited, and we're not going to feel at peace within ourselves. The great meditative traditions of the world and the great sages and saints have understood this, that when you quiet the mind, you realize that the consciousness that we are is not coming out of this physical body. This physical body comes out of our consciousness. I mean, what we are is infinite eternal consciousness, and we manifest the physical body for a few decades as a way to grow and learn and to work together and to contribute. And so that understanding of spirituality is critical, because what we're raised in as a society today is a material view. Since we're buying and selling every day millions of animals by the pound as if they're just sacks of cement, this is so barbaric and really satanic. I mean, you can't, and ignorant. I mean, we know we wouldn't buy and sell dogs and cats by the pound, or human beings. I mean, I hope. I mean, we see, my gosh, what are we doing? But we do it to cows and pigs, and chickens and fishes, all these animals every day. That right there, that exposes a disconnect that is so shocking and so ridiculous that it basically forces us to begin to see ourselves merely as matter. and to see the whole universe as merely as matter. And we have this very materialistic science, so we try to figure out like what's going on here, and with blinders on, that we don't see beyond the material view. And when we think of ourselves merely as an object, then we have to just try to sell ourselves on the market as an object. And that causes tremendous inner disconnectedness and unhappiness. And that leads to addictions of all kinds, and all of that just disempowers us. Everything, all the theories of evolution and all the theories of random mutation in a meaningless universe, all these are philosophies that have been given to us to enslave us, because they come out of the enslaved mentality of animal agriculture, which is enslaving animals. And when we enslave animals, we end up enslaving ourselves. Whatever you sow, so shall you reap. The golden rule and this idea of what you sow, you reap. Those are nuggets of wisdom that if we just contemplate those a little bit, we're liberated. And the beautiful thing is that this earth has no need for us to enslave animals. We can easily feed everyone on a fraction of the land, water, and petroleum and other resources, and allow most of the land that we're using now, that we're enslaving to genetically engineered corn and soy and alfalfa and grazing all these poor animals, that could go back to being beautiful forests and prairies and wilderness again, and habitat for animals. We could feed everyone, plenty of people. We could feed everyone on a fraction of the land, and we could have a beautiful future for our children based on harmony. It's all about really, I think, coming back to the food of kindness, and then really decentralizing the way we're living. This idea of centralizing power and control. That's what animal agriculture does. It leads to increased centralization, more and more power in the hands of a few. You can have one guy controlling 100 or 1,000 animals, So the whole idea is to let go of all that and start to come back into a relationship with the earth, where we're growing our own food, we're connected with our neighbors, we're connected with the earth, and each one of us can do our best to do that right now, right? To move our lives toward a vegan way of living, which is not eating animal foods or wearing them or buying products tested on animals and so forth, trying to I would say be as much as possible organic, because pesticide, herbicide, and fungicides, they just kill animals and destroy ecosystems. And then to try to educate ourselves and then spread these ideas and support people who are growing food organically and locally, and just build an alternative instead of fighting against a system that's destructive and obsolete, to build something that's an alternative. And as we do that more and more, like you're doing with, and we're talking about now, just talking these ideas, then we become an example. And I think just being an example as best we can be for the short time we're on this earth. We're only here for a few decades, no matter what, so we might as well do the best we can to show an alternative way of living. And that means questioning everything. I think really it's very healthy to develop the ability to question all the official narratives, and especially the ones that we really believe, and just look with an open mind. And one of the best ways to do that is to practice a meditative awareness every day, just to quiet the mind and just listen. Because the problem is, in our society, we're driven to always be consuming not only products, but media. And so we're always plugged into our computer and our cell phone, and it doesn't give us time to just be with ourselves and the silence, and to get into nature and just listen to the trees and become get in touch with our inner authority. And then I think we begin to free ourselves from the mentality that creates the materialistic world that we're living in, and we can question all these narratives that we see on the television. When people say, how is it possible that you have never been to a doctor or to a drugstore in 45 years, actually 50 years, since 1972. And I say, it's easy. I haven't had a television in 50 years. I think, really try to, instead of getting our information from these channels that are programming us. They're programs. That's what they call it. Most newspaper, radio, and television, mass media is not helpful if we want to really understand what's happening in our world, and to begin to connect with our inner wisdom. And that's one of the things that each one of us can do if we just take time, make it a discipline every day to listen internally and question the official narratives in our society.
So what I'm hearing is that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. And that It's incumbent on all of us. And I throw myself right in this category, Dr. Tuttle, that, I need to slow down. I meditate regularly and just try to connect with that inner wisdom, which we all have. And in that wisdom, we know that we would not want to hurt anyone, including animals, because the bad news and the good news is that we have climate, right up above it going, if you won't get it, we have another idea. Mother Nature is taking over. And I would think that as we have all of these weather catastrophes, one after the other, that might wake someone up, but you don't hear it at all. Right now eggs are expensive, and they're, instead of saying, well, maybe we shouldn't be eating eggs,
right?
They're coming up with all these other, scenarios that just make no sense. One of the things in your book that I really loved was this quote. I think his name was Bill Mollison, where he said, while the problems are increasingly complex, the answers are embarrassingly simple. And that's really, I think, what it all comes down to. It's very simple. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful saying, because we're told continually that everything is so complex, and on a certain level it is. But as he says, and really what's the same thing I'm saying in the World Peace Diet and Food for Freedom, the answers are embarrassingly simple. It comes back to the golden rule: not doing to others what we wouldn't have done to us, and eating lower on the food chain, decentralizing again, growing food ourselves as much as we can, and realizing that, like E.F. Schumacher said, small is beautiful. We can actually, like I said, feed everyone on much less land and resources and have more time. What are we so busy doing? So many different things. And how did we get ourselves into the situation of trying to dominate and control nature so strongly? The more we do, the more we have more diseases. The number of diseases is just growing exponentially. We have over 80,000 chemicals that we have created that were never here until we started playing around with our chemical sets, and creating chemicals to kill bacteria and to kill funguses and to kill so-called pests and to kill other human beings, and to stop fire or whatever. All these fire retardants and chemicals and all these things that are sprayed into the environment and end up in our food and water and air. And the thing is, I guess what we have to be very careful to understand is that all of this works very well for a tiny, small number of people who control the media and the pharmaceutical medical complex and the military and the educational system and the government and the governments. As I point out in the book Food for Freedom, it's about 1/10,000th of 1% of the human population, about 8,000 people, that actually control information and the narrative that we're talking about. So it's in their interest to control how we see the world, because this goes completely contrary. I mean, every one of us, and not only humans, but all mammals, it's well understood, there's a sense of fairness in interactions. But when you have a situation where 1/10,000th of 1% of the people have so much wealth and power that they can basically dominate and exploit the other 99.9999% of the people, the only way that can be kept in place is through severe and powerful narrative management. And that means controlling everything, like I said, and what we're thinking, and so that we go along with it. And so it's in the best interests of those who control the narratives to make us think it's very complicated, and we better just not question anything and go along with it with everything how it is, because quite honestly, it's not that complicated. It's actually very simple. We can feed ourselves. We can live beautiful lives. What is our purpose? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, and to get in touch with the human purpose. And keeping things very complicated and keeping us competing and divided against each other and so forth, that distracts us and makes us, and all these chemicals make us sick. And when we're sick and we have all these neurodegenerative diseases and cancer and psychological illness and depression and anxiety, all these things that come from being overcrowded, then we're more easily controlled. So the whole idea is about empowerment of ourselves through meditation or spiritual practices, prayer, however you feel, to reconnect with the eternal consciousness, which is what our true nature is. When our mind gets quiet and we realize that at the very core of my being, there is a bubbling spring of joy that is always there. I don't need to buy something to feel joy. I don't need to get somebody say something nice to me to feel joy. It's just my true nature. It is our true nature. Just to open our eyes and to be alive and to see the beauty of trees and birds and people and each other, to be here on this beautiful earth. We don't need anything, actually. And so we're here, like Jesus said it beautifully. He said, "You are the light of the world." That's our purpose, to just radiate our understanding and communicate with each other, with the animal. We could communicate with animals if we stopped killing them all the time, and we could have beautiful, rich relationships with each other, with animals. We can create music and art. We can celebrate our lives. We can grow foods of delicious beauty and abundance. I mean, we have a little half acre, but we have about a quarter of an acre devoted to growing food, my wife and I, and we have 75 fruit trees, nut trees, and 6 raised beds of vegetables and lots of berries. And it's just so beautiful to go out into this little space of love and see all the hundreds of fruits and vegetables and things that just come forth. The more you love the earth, the more the earth loves you back. The more we give love into our relationships, the more we are loved. But animal agriculture is based on the opposite of that. And that's how we do agriculture now. Instead of growing plants with love, we have pesticides and herbicides and monocultures, and we kill off everything, and we grow our corn and our trees, but all in a very animal agriculture way of domination. So the whole idea is to create more small local ecosystems that grow food forests, and everyone can have if you have just a little piece of land, like just a typical suburban lot or even a city lot, you can grow a lot of food, actually. And so the whole idea is to realize the inherent abundance of nature and of our hearts, of our beings, and not believe this narrative that there's not enough to go around, that there'll always be hunger, that those who are stronger can control, or that technology, that's the big one, that technology will solve our problems. We really have to reject that. Technology has been, ask cows and pigs and chickens how much technology has helped them, right? It's made their lives more and more hideously painful and dumbed them down and genetically mutilated them. It will do the same to us. We should never think that technology has got any answer. It comes out of animal agriculture. It comes out of a mentality of dominating and exploiting, and how a few can control the many. The solution is in spiritual awakening and realizing the inner joy of our being is always there. We don't need to have a lot of stuff to be happy. Minimalism. I mean, the less we have. We lived in an RV for 17 years. If I wanted to buy a pair of pants, I had to get rid of a pair of pants. I didn't have room for anything. So we can be happy with very little. And it's really the depth of our consciousness and the quality of our relationships. And that's what we actually have power over. We have power over the quality of our relationships, the quality of our consciousness, the quality of the food we're eating. And so we do have power. We have a lot of power. And when we use that with wisdom, then we can be a radiating center of light into the world. We can create a space of love that's around us wherever we go. We can smile to people. We can do our best not to shame and blame and criticize them, but just say, look, this is a possibility. We can question the official narratives, and it's fantastic. It's really a very positive message. I mean, we're talking about liberation and the fact that we're all interrelated. The more we bless others, the happier we are. We don't have to even say anything. We can be driving the car and just send love to everybody as we drive, or when we're waiting in line at the post office, just send love to people. Everyone we ever see is having a difficult time, pretty much. They may smile, they may say everything's fine, but really, there's so many ways that we suffer. Physically, people have aches and pains. Psychologically, people feel inadequate. They're not really, for the most part, people are having a tough time. So the more we can just be kind and loving and understanding and send them love, it really does help. I mean, it really helps people. You may not know it, but you may really help somebody by just being kind and loving to them in a very simple way. And that's really what veganism is. It's just not just theoretically being loving, but practically being loving. Like, I'm going to practice it. I'm not just going to talk about it. We're going to actually live this, and in every possible way, and question everything.
And isn't it wonderful that we live in a time where even with all of these forces, we can take it all back as individuals and just slow it down, make better choices, treat everyone with loving kindness, and it will grow from there. I really appreciate this time with you, Dr. Tuttle. Before we go, can we support you in any way? I know you've got a lot of programs in play, and I would love to give you a moment to tell us how we can find you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Actually, our website, worldpeacediet.com. We have our books are there, the World Peace Diet and Food for Freedom, the World Peace Way. There's some other ones, Buddhism and veganism, if people are interested in that. We have our tour schedule. Right now we're on tour. We do that 5 months of the year. So we're in Florida right now, heading back west now. And so if you want to see where we're giving lectures and presentations and concerts and workshops and all those kinds of things, you can go to the upcoming events there. And we have articles that I've written. My wife, Madeline, has a whole channel of YouTube videos called Madeline's Intuitive Kitchen. It's all vegan, healthy, organic food. And we have our food forest. You can take a walk with Madeline through our food forest and see how to grow food, if you like, and some music and art. And she plays the flute, I play the piano. So our whole idea is to spread the vegan message through beauty and through delicious food and kindness and celebrating our lives and the joy of living, really. And so we have those. And we also have a training called the World Peace Diet Facilitator Training, which, if you'd like to, it's an 8-week online self-paced. You go deeper into these ideas and become certified as a World Peace Diet Facilitator. But hundreds of people have gone through that and give book study groups on the World Peace Diet. And so we have quite a few things doing. We're just starting up once a month class with Dr. Gabriel Cousins, who's a pretty well-known vegan MD. And so you'll see there's different things we're doing there, but we love to stay in touch with people and just do the best we can to work together to help share this message and to live in a way that's in alignment with our true nature, which is loving kindness for each other.
Dr. Tuttle, it has been an honor. Thank you so much for being on Better Life for Animals.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening.
Thank you for joining us on the Better Life for Animals podcast. Together, we can create a world where all beings are treated with dignity, respect, and care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more people and spread awareness about the incredible work happening in animal sanctuaries. You can also share this episode with friends and fellow advocates to keep the conversation going. Until Until next time, keep speaking up, taking action, and making a difference for the animals.